Hi, folks. It's great to be with you. So we're on the YouTube, we're on the Facebook, and we're on the Twitter from Mobilise. So we are the tech startup by carers and for carers. My name's James. I'm CEO of Mobilise, and we're here today to talk about some of the research that we've been doing about caring during lockdown. Now, as we go along in this conversation, if you're watching live, then please do ask us a question, make comments, share your experiences. We're really keen to hear from you. We're going to be running for about half an hour just to talk about some of the themes coming out of our recent report. And I want to welcome some fantastic guests that we've got on the live stream today. So Dr. Matthew Lariviere is with Circle at the University of Sheffield. Hey, Matthew.
Hey, James.
And Dr. Warren Donnellan is a lecturer in psychology at the University of Liverpool. Hey, Warren.
Hello, James.
And Suzanne Bourne is head of carer support here at Mobilise and is herself a carer as well. Hey, Suzanne.
Hello, James, and hello, everyone that's watching.
So great to have everybody here. Suzanne, the focus of the research that we're looking at, was looking a lot at virtual cuppers, and Mobilise have been running over 200 of them. Can you tell us what a virtual cupper is and why it's a great thing?
Well, a virtual cupper happens daily. Carers from all over the country get together. Normally we have a group of 8 to 10 carers. We're hanging out in Zoom for 45 minutes. We have a different topic and structure and focus for each session. They run at different times of the day so people can join us if they're working and different things like that. Essentially, it's a safe space. It's a place of peer support and it's a facilitated conversation. And we've been having a great time.
Absolutely. And so we started on the 20th of March, and then Warren and Matthew were looking at the transcripts of some of those cuppers between then and at some point in July, I think. Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about why researchers are interested in a carer's cupper? How is this helpful to study this?
Sure. So a few things, James. So thanks for the question. First of all, as researchers, we really want to understand what the challenges carers have had during this first lockdown, and indeed now into the second lockdown. Because let's face it, it's been a pretty rotten year for all of us. We think disproportionately for people with carers and additional needs too. So we really want to help understand what challenges they were facing and what resources they had available to them. And thankfully, the transcripts of the virtual cuppers was a great way of kind of accessing people's experiences. But I think more so too, Warren and I are really interested in how technology can support these carers, help instill resilience in them, and also help kind of support them with their both care responsibilities, but also the other obligations in their everyday lives. And we want to see how this system, the virtual cupper system that you've developed as Mobilise, can help them do that.
Yeah, interesting. And so, Matthew, you mentioned carers' resilience there, which leads me on to the question that I have for Warren. Warren, can you explain what carers' resilience is? And the reason I come to you is because you've studied this in a great deal of detail.
Yeah, James. I've been studying it for longer than I'd care to remember. and like you said earlier, with my own kind of lived experience through having caregiving in my family as well. So it's a rich area of interest for me. Caregiver resilience is essentially defined as the process of adapting to managing, negotiating with significant sources of stress. So in the case of caregiving, the caregiving role itself is the stress. So it's essentially what resources, as Matthew said, do carers draw on? What tools do people have in their toolkit to combat the stresses that they face in their role?
And some of I thought it was really interesting that what you guys described as what resources did you draw on? And I was thinking that you might mean like which guides or which bits of funding. You actually highlighted that the community and other carers can be a resource as well. Is that right? Warren, that one's for you.
That one's for me. Yeah. Community. We know from the research literature that peer support is really, really important, particularly for carers, because having someone who's going through the same thing as you is really quite powerful in terms of the exchange of support, and often far more useful and beneficial for people than a lot of other sources. So that is something that was really clear in the data that we looked at as well. Is people came in with a sort of in a pre-existing way valuing peer support, but then certainly developing a sense of community with other like-minded individuals. That was really clear and really quite powerful.
Well, it was a big theme of the conversations that Suzanne, you were having day in, day out. I wonder, we've got a little clip of Jackie, who was a regular member of the cuppa community. So we're going to play that and then talk about come back and talk about some of the findings that you took out of the research.
I am Jackie Darlington. I'm quite an old lady now. I turned 16 last month, so I'm told I'm quite old by the boys. I'm a full-time carer of Joshua, who is 28. The online cuppas were a lifeline. The other things I found were a little bit here and a little bit there, but the online cuppas have been consistent, and we have become a family. You know, when you first start a new group, you're all a bit, hesitant, and do I say this, do I say that? I don't think any of us ever felt that way. And because we were all in the same boat of being carers, we got on really, really well. We've had some real laughters, we've had some real tears, we've supported each other. They've supported me. You know, when you've got that real comfy jumper, or you just want to snuggle up with a blanket, they make me feel so comfortable, so at ease. I don't think there's anything that I've not feel comfortable saying in front of the group. We have grown with each other. And even when new people come in, they've actually said that they don't feel like they've just started with us. We've made them feel welcome. It doesn't have to be doom and gloom every time you talk about caring. You can have fun as well.
Oh, bit of an abrupt ending there. Yeah, but it's so really, really powerful to hear from Jackie's experiences there. And Suzanne, tell us a little bit about what you experienced going through all of those cuppas and the journey that community went on.
It's been amazing, really. I mean, the study looked at sort of the first period of lockdown, but we've kept going and we're still going. We've hit 225 cuppas now. But as Jackie describes it, we've built a family. I've seen people support one another. I've seen, the research that Warren's talking about, that I've seen that actually come to life. I've seen that in reality. People build resilience and people being able to cope with incredibly tough situations. We were amazed at how quickly people moved into that space of sense of humour, being able to have a bit of a giggle. But there's also been times where people have brought their really tough stuff. And, this is sometimes the only place where they can really share how difficult it is and how much they're struggling or how frustrated they are or just how exhausted they are, that they can share that with people that know. And sometimes there are no words. It's just those knowing nods around that Zoom call of people that get it. And I think what amazes people every time is that Zoom, these online platforms can feel really warm and really personal, and it's not computerized or tech. This is real people connecting in real time, it's been amazing.
I think that's really powerful, Suzanne. Although we can really easily focus on the tech side of this. This is basically humans who are having a tough time and a really extraordinary experience coming together to support each other. And the tech happens to facilitate that. Matthew, I want to ask you, what did the research I should also say hello, Jackie, hello, Vanessa, hello, Virginia, and Chloe, who are joining in the chat. Please do post any questions and comments as you're going along. Matthew, what did the research tell us were the challenges that carers experienced through lockdown number 1?
Sure, there were a few challenges. Really just looked at kind of things of uncertainty, sense of lost control people may have had, kind of their fears about not knowing how to access new information or access services, especially at the initial period in late March when we were all kind of facing this new uncertainty. Or indeed when people did access information, kind of could be conflicting information as well. So they're uncertain about just how to action different things, either with their caring obligations or indeed to other facets of their life. People often feel socially isolated or alone. I think that's a really good point we mentioned before about sense of community, right? So community is so important to feeling supported and having additional resources to draw upon. So what happens when people are in a lockdown where they lose that kind of sense of their local community, right? That they can't engage with them. And I think one thing we've seen is the opportunity for technology to kind of intervene there and provide different kind of new forms of community for us all. But when it comes to the challenges for carers, we also had a blurring of responsibilities too. So people were trying to manage both work, caring obligations, all now in the same space as well. That can be very challenging for carers. And ultimately, people were getting to feel a bit of fatigue, a bit of care burden and burnout as the months wore on, especially as we looked into kind of June period and towards the end of July, which is where our study ended.
Yeah, interesting. And I'm sure anybody listening, whether or not they had a caring role, will recognize some of the themes that you've pulled out there, Matthew. And of course, we've got to remember that carers were feeling a lot of these kind of on steroids almost, because of the nature of their caring role and the circumstances they were in. Warren, can you say a little bit about the resources that you found carers had been drawing on in the period?
Yeah, definitely. So what was really important, in addition to the sense of community, was routine. So people's routines had been disrupted heavily by the kind of government sanctioned, limitations, social distancing, quarantine, shielding. So often the problem with that is that often carers rely on a routine to kind of get through the day and know what's happening when. Suddenly that's out of the window. So re-establishing some of those routines in light of COVID and in light of those restrictions was really important. And actually the cuppers became part of the routine, the daily cupper, and knowing that at this time we're going to be speaking to people who've probably been experiencing the same kind of thing we have. But also positivity and optimism as well. So we know that's one of the hallmarks of the cuppers, but that's a pre-existing quality of carers. We know from some of the research that I've been involved in the past that carers who can stay positive despite, acknowledging that there is light and there's dark, but really, humour, positivity, and focusing on the uplift as well. And then finally, just in addition to the sense of community, as lockdown restrictions began to end, as we all did, we began to, as the restrictions eased, reconnect with our loved ones as well. And that was hugely powerful in terms of allowing people to get back to that routine and just get the affection that they need to kind of fuel them to carry on, really.
Absolutely. And a lot of those themes, Warren, that you mentioned there come out in the report as different things that people really kind of relied on. And I think one of the interesting points that you guys found was that, well, two actually. One was that there were some really practical bits of advice coming through. So in addition to the emotional support, there were kind of chunky, tangible bits of practical advice being swapped and exchanged. But also the instead of just introducing people to other resources, the cuppa became a resource in itself and was actually a form of support. I want to ask Suzanne, a lot of carer supporting organisations and local authorities and others have been running online events, and it's really hard to get this right. And certainly we've refined and learned so much as we've gone along. Can you say a little bit about what you found effective in running these events and how that comes through in the report?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good to start, if you're going to start any event, to have a real sense of purpose of what it's for and what you're trying to achieve, rather than just, we're just going to chat. So whether it's having a topic or a theme, having a bit of structure and facilitation to it is important. Having that uplift at the end. You're not forcing people to be positive, but we're really intentional about not leaving people in a bad place, because who's going to want to come back to that cuppa if it was really miserable? But we need somewhere safe, to be honest. And I think what I see a lot of organisations do, and I know I've done it before, is to try and take an existing event or group online and just to make it happen online. And I think you need to rethink it a bit sometimes. The people that will leave their house and go to a group, face-to-face group, might not be the same people that will join an online group. And actually that's good news, particularly for the days when we can get back to running face-to-face. imagine if we can reach lots of more people by doing online stuff. And I think that's the key. Who will join online and really think about meeting their needs rather than just trying to transfer something online and wondering why it's not working. So I think that's quite key. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes some key people to help to build that community. It won't happen just by accident. And it takes, you have to keep constantly reflecting on what are we doing? Can we improve it? But I'm just really pleased to be doing it and thinking we can remove lots of barriers to digital. Lots of those things can be easily overcome. And it's not the kind of poor relation of face-to-face groups. It's something different. It's something that adds to the accessibility and the inclusivity, how you can bring people in. Just imagine, you haven't got to put your coat on, go out in the rain, you haven't got to pay for parking, battle transport, sit on the tube or whatever, find a bus. You're just there instantly. So there's no travel time. And I think also just think about the amount of time someone can spend online. I've seen a lot of events out there that are 2.5 hours long online. And as a carer, I don't know where they find that space from. I know I would really struggle to find both the time to join that event, but also the attention span.
Yeah, Suzanne, I think what you're saying there is really wise, because it's something that we don't really think about. When you're in person, having an event for an hour is that's kind of the standard unit of time, right? But I'm now already conscious that we've been going for nearly 20 minutes on this session, and that when it's online, it can feel quite long. Matthew, Warren, have you got any thoughts on how this cuppa, how the conversations were able to be delivered, and what was effective and what the challenges were? And just before I invite you to answer, I just want to say hi to all the others, and thanks for the comments that are coming through. But a lot of endorsement, Suzanne, about your point there around how we structure these things, and a bit on burnout as well. Matthew, Warren, how can we make online support really effective?
Sure. So one thing I think is really important, and something I kind of touched upon by Suzanne there, is actually the understanding that not everyone has these skills already in hand to use these sources, right? But actually through participation, you actually can scale up that part of the population as well. So, there were infrequent occasions where people had trouble connecting to the Zoom call or maintaining that connection throughout the whole half an hour. But by Suzanne's support and the support of other people on that call, they actually were able to understand how to join it, what they needed to do in order to access it, and everything like that. So in research parlance, we also call that digital literacies, right? It's having the skills and knowledge to actually take part in these kind of digital technologies and using them in our everyday lives. So it appeared through the research we did that actually through participating in Mobilise's virtual cuppas actually had the unintended consequence perhaps of actually upskilling people, actually kind of instilling new forms of digital literacy in them. So we think that's an amazing kind of, not a primary objective of the cuppas, but an unintended consequence actually was really beneficial to everyone on the calls.
Matthew, I think that's really important. I mean, just to use a folksy anecdotal example to back up your rigorous research, I think it took us ages to get my mum onto using computers and so on. But then when she learned that she could connect with her sister and her cousins and so on in Australia at the click of a button without having to do the whatever you do with figuring out time zones to make a telephone call and so on, suddenly actually having something to tempt you online, it means that it's much more exciting, and you're much more likely to learn how to do it when you understand that there's something that you can really benefit from, which is really important. Warren, did you pick anything out of the report that you felt was a real lesson that we could be taking forward for this?
Yeah, so obviously completely concur with what Matthew was saying, but I think resilience-wise, I think it's about creating a forum, whether that be in person or online, within which people can share, they can acquire, but they can also provide expertise, advice, guidance, emotional support. And like you said, Suzanne, that will take many different forms. But I think in terms of digital support, until you've tried it, it's about being open to different opportunities, and as well acknowledging that not one size doesn't fit all. So there's people who might drop in to these initiatives, and that's fine for them. But that was my kind of take home.
Absolutely. And so we had a conversation with some carer supporting organizations and local authority commissioners recently, and I thought there was a really interesting couple of themes coming out of that conversation. One was around accessibility. So I'll get lots of hassle on Twitter if I don't say that there are some people who don't have access to this kit and frankly don't want to come online. And so we need to make sure that carer support is delivered as a blend of online and offline. But I think, Suzanne, you're always reminding me really helpfully that there are loads of people who traditionally haven't been able to access offline carer support because of the challenges that are available there. So when we're balancing access, it works both ways. And there's also something really important. Warren, you mentioned the skills there and the equipment. So making sure that people have access to good speed broadband, the kit, but also the skills and the training to get on board is a really important part of all of this work. So it needs to be seen as a broader package. Now we've been running for 20 minutes, and we did learn that we shouldn't make these sessions too long. So I want to come to each of you and ask for if there was just one takeaway that you have from the research and looking at the experience of carers through the first and now the second lockdown. What is it that you take away in relation to moving or making sure carer support can happen online? Suzanne, can I come to you first and we'll go the other way around?
I think the key thing is just how human it is. It's a different form of connection, but it can be completely human. And if that element is missing, then it's take a step back and look at what needs to be changed. Don't just give up on technology because it doesn't feel human. I think we've proven it can be, really can be. And that's down to the participation of the people that join in and all that they bring to it. It's the carers that make it really amazing.
It's an amazing bunch, and giving them the space to make it their own is really powerful. And thanks, guys, for joining us in the comments today. Good to have a shout out for you. Warren, how about you? What's your takeaway from all of this?
For me, it's that social support is multifaceted, and different people, different environments give us different types of support. So it might be that carers don't need a hug from a fellow carer; they've got family for that. But what they do need from a fellow carer is, what worked, what didn't work, someone to validate your kind of emotions. And what I keep saying to people throughout the lockdown and looking forward to this kind of, this other new normal, so-called, that we're going through, is the acid test is going to be which bits, what have we learned from the previous lockdowns that we're going to take back with us. So, there's no going back in terms of, I think we've all been forced online. Mobilise has taken an opportunity and done a good job of it, but choice has been removed. But actually, a lot of that's worked really, really well, and we're probably going to take that back to this new normal and carry on benefiting from it. So that's kind of how I was left feeling after looking at the data.
Yeah, that's helpful. We're not going to go back to normal in any sense, are we? Thanks, Warren, and Matthew. Can I come to you for your kind of takeaway thought from this research?
Sure. In some ways, it's kind of actually joining together what Suzanne and Warren already said, which I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here when I say that we all know that carers faced an increased amount of care and also intensity of the care they were giving already during the first lockdown and indeed during the second lockdown as well, right? Technology is not replacing the connections and communities we already have in our everyday lives, perhaps in our local community, wherever it is geographically. What it is adding a new community to that, right? It's an opportunity for people to get enough sense of belonging to a community for people all around the country and indeed globally. I believe there are participants from New York from some calls too, that has shared experiences with other individuals. Feel like you're not alone, and there are opportunities for you to engage with people with shared experiences and shared challenges, and try to think out how we can address that as a group, as a collective.
That's really powerful. Thank you. And I want to thank all of you, Matthew, Warren, Suzanne, for joining us for this conversation. It's really important to thank the team who supported you, Matthew and Warren, in developing the research and trawling through some of the transcripts, but also so many of the carers who've been willing to share their story and let us observe and for all that they've given in all of those conversations. As Vanessa says in the comments, other carers can be a mine of information. So it's a really valuable conversation. Thank you all very much. If you want to check out the report, it's available on the Mobilise website. You can download a copy, and I know a number of organizations are already incorporating those learnings into their strategy as they come out of lockdown. Do follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Twitter and indeed on Facebook as well. It's been great to see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.